It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
They've done it. They don't need to do it anymore. But there is so much love in that room for your children, creating that beautiful village. And I think that if we can take that perspective, that we can pretty much just about deal with any of it.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
I love when we get questions like the one we're going to answer on today's podcast, Kylie, because I've actually got an opinion about it and I'm excited for it. So I'm going to dive straight in. Let's not beat around the bush. It's getting close to Christmas. People are in a hurry. They just want stuff done. This is the Happy Families podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. So here is the question that we've received from an anonymous poster through podcasts at happyfamilies.com.au. This person says, struggling with balancing family values and routines with visiting grandparents who have different ideas. I mean, this is such a perfect Christmas question, isn't it? Like, everyone knows that we're going to catch up with the grandparents, and the grandparents are going
Maybe it's not the grandparents. Maybe it's aunties and uncles. It could be any family member.
The big brother or big sister or the step, it doesn't matter. Somebody's going to come in and say, yeah, don't really care what your rules are. We're going to do it my way for Christmas or for the weekend or for the catch-up. So here's the specific detail in this question. We want our daughter to have a great time, especially as my parents don't live locally, and so their time together is limited. But when they swoop in for weeks and throw the world into chaos, it becomes a problem. They organise stuff to do without consideration for what else is going on and throw money at the situation, so of course they'll turn a 7-year-old's head. And while the jokes about grandparents being able to hock kids up on sugar and send them back might be funny, reality is somewhat different, as we're the one having to deal with the knackered kid who is out of routine. For example, on Saturday, they had a grand day out. We were fine letting bedtime slide, but they didn't give her lunch or dinner. They just let her scoff popcorn and ice cream, not even so much as Macca's. We want their limited memories to be great and even my limited time with aging parents to be as positive as possible. But the lack of respect is becoming an issue, and expecting my wife to suck it up and stay quiet while her world is turned on its head isn't fair either. My wife's mum, who lives locally and is an integral part of our daughter's life, is totally on the same page. She does the fun stuff and bends a rule or two, but always within the same culture and values we try to foster. So here's a dad he's really just saying my parents have come in and they just keep on turning our kids' world upside down and inside.
Well, it's not the kids' world upside down. It's actually mum and dad's world.
Yeah, for sure.
You know all about this.
Well, we have literally lived this for the last, I'm just counting, like 23 years, 24 years. And so for our anonymous messenger, we understand completely. So the first thing that I want to jump in with, I know you've got a lot to say, but I just want to jump in and highlight there's a reason that it's different for the mother-in-law who's just around the corner and who is an integral part of the kids' lives, and the parents who are swooping in for a week or two at a time and then disappearing. When you're part of someone's life, you don't feel like you have to go and do all the crazy stuff, do all the fun stuff,
well, you
spoil
don't have
them rotten.
You don't have to squeeze it all in.
Yes.
You feel like you have missed out on so much, so you want to jam-pack what little time you have to make it count.
I can't wait till I'm a grandparent. I'm going to turn our kids' lives upside down. It's going to be so much fun. But I digress. It's not about me right now. So I want to have a whole lot of sympathy and even empathy. I think that we do have empathy for this family. But I wanted to really emphasize that when you're there all the time, you get how the family operates, you get what the values are, you get what the needs are, and you don't have to squeeze it all in, which means that things don't get turned on their head.
I also think, though, not in every case, but I think that mothers and daughters have a different relationship.
I would agree with that, because when I look at how frustrated I get with my mum and how patient you are with your mum, like for me it feels like a difference. But I don't know if it's just because of who my mum is and who your mum is and who we are.
Well, I'm quite a reserved person in the conversations that I feel comfortable having with people, especially when I recognise that there's a level of emotion involved in it. But there are conversations that I am obviously much more comfortable having with my mum and dad, because they're my mum and dad, as opposed to trying to have them with your parents.
Yes.
About the same things.
So I'm really glad you raised that, because when I wasn't quite sure where you were going with that, but I kind of feel like if there's disruption in a family it shouldn't be up to the son or daughter-in-law to raise it with the in-laws. So if my parents are causing disruption, it's not really your job to talk to my parents about that. You need to talk to me, and we've got to be aligned, and then I should be going and talking to my parents. It's never a good look, never a good feel when the daughter-in-law goes to the parents-in-law and says, hey, you're kind of messing up our lives here. Much better when the son or the daughter go to their respective parents and say, here's what we're struggling with, and we're aligned. This isn't me dobbing or getting mad at you on behalf of my wife. We're aligned. That's a really handy piece of advice, and I think that this son could do well to take this to his parents himself, but I don't think he should. And this is the bit where I want to get a little bit forthright around it. We're talking about grandparents who don't get to see their grandkids a whole lot. And it's true that they do sort of swoop in and turn the world on its head for a day or a weekend or even a week or even maybe a month if they're traveling from a long way away.
And you're saying all of this from a very educated position. We have literally lived this, and we have lived through every possible emotion in relation to this.
Yeah, and we've had every argument with both sets of parents over the last 20-something years about it. So I don't want to sound glib when I say what I'm saying, because we've actually been there. And if I could go back and do it all over again from the start, the advice that I would give young 20-something-year-old Justin is just be cool. Let them go for it. Your kids are going to survive. Just enjoy the peace and quiet. Enjoy the serenity while the kids are out, and then lay down and cuddle your kiddo as they go to bed at night, knowing that they've had a great day with the grandparents.
Well, and recognise that tomorrow we're probably actually just going to need to have a really nice quiet day at home.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I think...
Or next week, if it's going to go all weekend.
I would say exactly the same thing. I look at the challenges and the frustration that I went through as a young mum watching... Mostly your mum.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that. I knew that was coming.
But my mum was involved in there as well. And watching the chaos that ensued as a result of time spent with either of them.
And the friction. I know I cut you off, but it wasn't just the chaos. It was the friction. It was the bad vibes, the ill feeling, the ill will. I remember one night coming in after your parents had so kindly given up their night, looked after our kids so you and I could go on a date, got back at like 9:15, and our little ones, like they were under the age of 5, were still watching TV. Or maybe it was like 8:30 or something like that, but it was an hour past their bedtime. And I was so rude. I was so rude as I walked in and said, why are the kids still watching TV? They should have been in bed an hour ago. And I stared your parents down, and then I switched off the TV mid-program and dragged the kids into the room. And I was like, you need to go to bed right now. And there was just that friction that it created. I mean, I don't know how your parents held their tongue and were so humble about it. They just quietly said goodnight to you and left while I fumed as I tried to put the kids down. The friction, it's just not worth it.
So I think about those experiences, and in spite of the challenge, I look at so many of my friends who don't even have the luxury of having grandparents swoop in and turn their lives upside down. Or
sometimes don't even have them in the first place.
And I know which one I choose every single time.
Yes.
And in spite of all of that, if you talk to any one of our children, they could name 100 reasons why their grandparents are just the bee's knees in their world, and all of the beautiful memories that they had. Yes, they ate ice cream for breakfast. Yes, they didn't have
lunch or dinner, and they came home starving and emaciated because all they had is popcorn for lunch.
Or they stared at the TV for way too long and didn't go to bed until way too late. But I think when we are able to take a step back and recognise that here are two people who have literally done their child rearing, could really completely just leave babysitting duties up to everybody else because they've done it. They don't need to do it anymore. But there is so much love in that room for your children, creating that beautiful village of support and connection that they desperately need and want. And I think that if we can take that perspective, that we can pretty much just about deal with any of it.
So the weekend just gone, we had my family's extended family Christmas across the weekend. So we went to the Gold Coast. We all had a motel, hotel room, whatever it was, for a couple of nights in the same building so that we all got to spend time together. And we've tried for more than 20 years now to calm my mum down. when it comes to Christmas and gifts
And sugar.
Sugar. I mean, my mum is an accredited practicing dietitian, but she has no concept of our very best efforts to reduce the amount of sugar intake that our kids get.
And literally all of your siblings are all actually very...
We're probably the least healthy.
No, nutritionally conscious.
That's what I mean. Like we're quite conscious of it, but compared to my siblings, holy smokes, we're pretty lax compared to them. They're much more full on than we are.
That's right. And so to go through a weekend where literally every corner...
It's custard for breakfast, and I mean, we caught the kids eating Whiz Fizz for breakfast, for goodness sakes. We would never do that. But even my very, very health conscious brother and his wife, they kind of just shrugged their shoulders and they're like, you know what, this weekend... Nan is going to do what Nan does, and we can either fight it and have a horrible time, or we can just shrug our shoulders and be like, it's one weekend every, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. It's one weekend.
Well, since COVID, it's probably once every 3 years, to be honest.
Yes.
We have, this is the first time we've been together for such a long time.
And as a result of your and my ability and my brother's ability and my other sisters, their ability to just shrug their shoulders and say, you know what, my mum's name is Karen. Don't hold it against her. But it's just Karen being Karen. It's just who she is. It's just what she does. We actually had a really nice weekend because we didn't get frustrated at the late nights, the excessive sugar, the over-the-top gift giving that's completely unnecessary and feels burdensome and wasteful and challenging. Instead, we just said, we love her. She loves the kids. We're going to make it awesome. And we went with it. And I know that this kind of feels, I hope it doesn't feel horrible to our anonymous emailer who said, I need help here. But that's the approach that we both seem pretty aligned on. That is much better to have the grandparents in their lives than not. And if there's a short period where all the rules do kind of go out the window, it's okay because grandma will go home and it'll only take a day or two and everything will be back to normal.
And if we can just round this whole picture out, we drove out the driveway from the Gold Coast to come home and I almost didn't make it home. I was feeling that physically drained and awful as a result of all of
you slept most of the way home, yeah.
That was shoved into my body. Well, it actually wasn't. I chose it, but it was available to us. And that's the reality. It was like that.
Yep.
And I felt physically ill, and I'm still actually not feeling 100% after the garbage we ate for the weekend. But I'm still, I can't tell you how full my heart is and how grateful I am for your mum and dad and for the way they just love our children.
Yep.
And I don't believe it's a disrespect of my values and my wishes.
Yeah.
I don't feel like at any point she's going, well, stuff you. I'm the grandparent. I can do what I want.
I'm going to rub it in your face because I can.
It's not that at all.
No, it's not.
This is just her way.
Yes.
It's just her way and it's who she is. And I can't change her.
And we've tried.
We have.
And so has every one of my siblings and all of the in-laws. Like we've all tried. My dad's been trying for 40-something, 50-something years to change my mum. Not going to happen. But as we accept, we just have a better time. And it's taken a couple of days. But you know what, Kylie, the other thing is when you sit down, and this is what I would want this dad who's sent us this email to do. When you sit down with your kiddo after grandma goes home and you say, hey, what was the best thing about grandma being here? And then you just listen as they say, I love doing this and I loved it when she bought me that. And I loved it when we got to do that thing and have this experience. And I loved it when she laid down and tickled me. Like the list will be long. And at that point you kind of go, yeah, I'm sweating the small stuff. I'm worried about all the wrong things here. Those things do matter. And if it's going to be an everyday thing, it becomes an issue. But if it's a day or a weekend or a week or even a month, just take a breather and encourage the relationship. Relationship is everything. Relationships, love, that's the heart of the whole thing. So that's our response to that question. I hope that it helps everyone to get through Christmas this year like we had to last weekend. We got one more of those coming up with your family in a couple of weeks' time, and we're going to take the same approach. We're just going to go with whatever happens, and once it's all done, we'll get back into life again. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. If you have questions for us, podcasts at happyfamilies.com.au. That's podcasts at happyfamilies.com.au. A quick caveat on everything we've just talked about. We're operating on the assumption that relationships are safe and healthy. If they're not, obviously different rules would apply. Tomorrow on the podcast, very, very excited to tell you our I'll Do Better Tomorrow. Kylie has got the best one ever about me and how awesome I was when one of our daughters had an experience that nobody ever wants their child to go through.